Are you saying that within a representative democracy, that people never end up voting for a representative who says they're going to do a thing, right? And then they start doing that thing, but they didn't understand. They didn't understand the details, and so like what they're actually getting is not what they want. You just before
in a representative democracy.
Hold on, before we just got started, right? We were in the green room. You talked about the Green New Deal.
Yeah,
right?
I was a big fan.
You said how you were a big fan of the Green New Deal until you heard the details until you released it, right?
That's right.
So let's say you were a constituent of AOC, right?
Yep.
And you voted for that. She says she's going to get the Green New Deal. I support that. But then when she actually gets in office, she puts out a plan that you don't support. Now, you're saying, well, that's just democracy. And it is just democracy. But that doesn't necessarily, it captures exactly the will of you, the individual, correct?
But here's the issue. When AOC first got elected and they're talking about a Green New Deal, the implication was a public works program investing in green energy, rebuilding roads and bridges. We've got crumbling infrastructure. And I said, that sounds fantastic. Of course, my position usually on this stuff is we got to cut spending somewhere to pay for it. We shouldn't be taxing people to do it. We shouldn't be spending money on wars. Let's stop spending money on Ukraine, Israel, insert country, Afghanistan, and bring that money back home. When AOC then released a resolution, it was diversity nonsense. It was hiring. It was getting academic scholarships to minorities. And I was like, I don't know what that's all about. The question then is, if you believe that, or the issue I suppose is, if you believe that democracy is being threatened, and you believe and agree with an institution in which you vote for a representative democratically and they get in office, if your intention then is to subvert the individual who was put into office, you are a threat to democracy. Do you agree with the system we have where we vote for representatives?
I agree with the Constitution, right? And so, and within that Constitution,
yes, we vote for representatives.
Yes, indeed, and that Constitution has clauses. It's not simply that we vote for them and they do willy-nilly, right? They simply exist in this thing called the government, and they do whatever they want, right?
So we have impeachment.
Sure. Yeah, yes. We have structures within that, right? And we have laws. And DOGE is literally breaking those laws.
What laws are they breaking?
Sure. Okay, let's talk about it. Right?
We're changing the subject here now.
Let's
wrap up.
The people that voted.
Okay, sure. Then let's talk about that, right? So let's talk about veterans.
Well, let's wrap up the last point.
Okay.
The point of which you asked me is, we have a system in place. Mm-hmm. People get elected all the time who lie. Politicians lie. Everybody knows it. People vote hoping that the person will represent them to the best of their abilities. Mm-hmm. This is the system we have. And a lot of people on the left keep saying our democracy, our democracy, our democracy. It's more of a liberal talking point than a conservative one, because conservatives say constitutional republic all the time. If you would try to upend the administration that was elected by your own system, which you support, you are a threat to democracy.
If that administration is upending the Constitution, they're a threat to democracy.
That's definitionally incorrect.
Because they're breaking those laws that I'm talking about.
So there is a mechanism by which you can remove Donald Trump. It's called impeachment and conviction. If you are trying to obstruct and suspend the will of the democratic system, you're a threat to our democracy. So right now, you can argue the people did not expect Elon to do this, that, or otherwise.
Sure.
The appropriate process would be then Congress impeaches. Unfortunately, the people also elected a Republican majority, and the Republicans, looking at their constituents and current polling, which they track all year round, are supporting Donald Trump because they want to win again in 2 years. The indications are there is no popularity in stopping what Trump is doing.
Yeah, I think currently, certainly, it depends on where you go, and depends,
what about Republicans? Because that's what you.
Yeah. But again, I'm trying to get to that. Let's talk about these things. Okay, so let's talk about veterans, right? Veterans make up about 30%, according to this article from The Independent. Veterans make about 30% of the nation's federal workforce, right? So they've been disproportionately affected by these firings. So I care about veterans. I'm not sure about you guys, right?
Sure.
Okay.
You think the VA does a good job?
Hold on. No, pull it back, right? So I care about veterans. I care about what happens to them. I care that veterans are part of this workforce, are being valuable members of the workforce, and they're suddenly being cut and being told they're unnecessary, that they're bloat necessarily, right? And so veterans also are more likely to vote for Donald Trump. Here is a collection of veterans who voted for Donald Trump, right? But then guess what? They got fired. Nathan Hooven is a disabled Air Force veteran who voted for Donald Trump in November. Barely 3 months later, he's now unemployed and says he feels betrayed by the president's dramatic downsizing of the federal government that cost him his job. Right? I have more stories. James Stansel, 60-year-old Army veteran who was fired last month from his job as a supply technician at the VA hospital in Milwaukee, said it felt like he'd been shot and jumped out of a helicopter.
This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous, Prime.
It's
sorry.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous to hear the story of veterans.
First of all, if you know any veterans, they all hate the VA. One, two. We know the VA was spending federal money to have orgies. That's literally a thing that came up recently. It was a big controversy. You can Google it if you want. Look up VA orgy. It's crazy stuff, right? So, like, why are we going to be spending money like on orgies? That's hold on, Brian. 1 second here. So when I'm sitting here hearing what you're saying, and you're saying, oh, I can find an anecdotal example of one guy that got fired.
That's what you just used, anecdotal examples. Hey, my friend group.
Hold on.
My friend group likes DOGE.
So sure, I'm sitting here and I'm talking about in mass quantities, right? I voted for this.
You were just
everybody that I know voted for this.
Oh, everyone you know.
Hold on, Brian. So when I'm sitting here going, I'm looking. You're finding one example of a guy that fired.
I have more examples. You're interrupting me.
We can go back to that 1 second.
Okay.
But let me just finish. When I'm looking at America as a whole, right, I'm seeing hey, what do you think that cutting the spending looks like, right? This is what it looks like. This is what we voted for. Trump ran on a couple things. He said, close the border. He did that. He said he's going to try to get out of Ukraine. We got a ceasefire going. He says he's going to stop. He's going to cut spending. DOGE is cutting spending. This is what cutting the bloat looks like. Sometimes people are going to get fired.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.